Hi there, Julián. Welcome to the DevOps Diaries podcast. What a pleasure it is to have you on.
Thank you very much, Jack, for having me in your podcast.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's an absolute pleasure. Julián, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today, but I think it's important for the listeners to understand a little bit about you and what you do and why I'm so excited.
Oh, of course. So, well, as Jack said, my name is Julián Duque. I'm the principal developer advocate for Heroku, which is part of Salesforce. I've been at the company like Salesforce and the ecosystem for pretty much 5 years. My 5th anniversary is going to be next week. So I'm very, very happy to be part of this wonderful community. And I come from a very extensive open source and community leadership background. I've been doing community outreach since 2001
Wow.
with the Linux community. This was when I was kind of like 16 years old, so you can do the math. And then I got engaged with the JavaScript community in 2010, 2011, back in my hometown of Medellin in Colombia, South America. And since then, I've been nonstop working with tech communities, open source communities, doing tech conferences, meetups, doing education, outreach. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. And it became my job when I became a developer advocate. So I love this. I love what I do, and I'm planning to continue doing so for a while.
And you spent a lot of time in the Node.js community before moving into Salesforce. Is that right? Doing stuff with JavaScript and that side of things. How did you find your way into Salesforce?
Oh, this is a very good question. I was working for a Node.js company. We created a whole runtime for Node.js, and we have like some observability and monitoring tools for Node.js applications. And I was very involved, as I mentioned, with the JavaScript community, like organizing conferences, going to conferences. And I always wanted to start working to have more outreach. I was doing education, like trainings, but the groups I was training were like maybe 10 people for certain specific companies. So even though I was having some sort of outreach, it was very limited to a niche of companies or groups of people. So I learned about this role of developer advocacy, and I wanted to start doing that. Like, okay, let's find a developer advocate job that can let me continue doing this Node.js outreach and teaching, but as a full time. I was looking for different positions, and I found that Heroku was hiring for a developer advocate. My first talk that I gave about Node.js and how to get Node.js into the cloud, when I created Medellin.js, the JavaScript user group of my hometown, Medellin in Colombia, my session was about deploying Node.js to the cloud. I was working back in the day for a platform as a service called Nodejitsu. And in one of my examples, I use Heroku. Okay, this is how you can also take your Node.js application to the cloud. So I remember that I used Heroku. That was a developer tool that it was beloved by the developer community. And I saw the best opportunity for me to start working full time as a developer advocate. I got hired. Good for me. Super happy. And then I learned that the Heroku was part of Salesforce, but I was unaware of the whole Salesforce ecosystem. Mm-hmm. When I was consulting, when I was working for this Node.js company, I tried to do some Salesforce integration because we had like a support platform and we wanted to connect this to our CRM. But that was all of it. That was the only introduction that I have to Salesforce. while working at Heroku for a year and a half, we had like an internal reorg, and I got transferred from Heroku to the Salesforce developer team to work as a developer advocate for Salesforce. And my knowledge of Salesforce was zero. Like technically, I didn't know anything about Lightning Web Components or Apex or how to set up an org. For me, was a total new universe, and I had to learn. I had to learn from scratch because, of course, our job as a developer advocate is to enable other developers, teach them, but how I'm going to be teaching something that I don't know, that I don't understand. So then I start the journey of, okay, let's get into this Salesforce world by doing. So I start putting myself some challenges, trying to mix Heroku and Salesforce, how to integrate both two things, create projects around it. I went on a rampage on Trailhead doing a lot of badges, super badges, trying to get myself up to speed. And I was lucky enough to be on a awesome team of super smart individuals that the Salesforce developer community might know, like Alba Rivas, Philip Ozil, Rene Winkelmeyer, Mohit Srivastava, Aditya, all of these folks, all of them experts in their own areas, super knowledgeable about Salesforce. And what I did was just absorb knowledge, share what I was learning, and I got involved into this Code Live show that was originally organized by Kevin Purman.
Mm-hmm.
And when Kevin left, I continued his legacy doing Code Live, like a weekly live stream teaching about Salesforce and how to build applications on Salesforce. So for me, that was the best opportunity I had to teach what I was learning. So every week, okay, I'm going to learn about platform events, did exercises, did projects, and then I prepare some content and put it online. And that's how I started getting involved within the Salesforce community, going to the dreaming events, and knowing people like Rob, working like with Peter, all of these great folks from the Salesforce community, and that's pretty much how I got deeply involved. Now, until recently, back in November, I got back to Heroku, now working full time on developer advocacy efforts for Heroku. But we are part of the same ecosystem, so I'm still doing a lot of Salesforce outreach as well.
Yeah, it's such a common theme when we talk to a lot of people in the ecosystem. Is kind of fell into Salesforce, knew nothing about it. I hit Trailhead super hard, and now we're here. And of course, a great network of highly respected and esteemed professionals in your fellow developer advocates there as well to learn from. I do want to dive into Heroku in just a moment, but something that's very common, and your story reflects this as well, is community is such a big part of the developer experience. You mentioned the Node community, the JavaScript community that you had in Medellin, and obviously community is a huge part of what we have at Salesforce. What do you think why is community so important in developer and software development specifically, and what makes it special?
For me, is a thing of collaborative learning. You can follow this path alone. I mean, a lot of people decide to go themselves and consume content and learn on their own, and they shine. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not a way to do it, but when you are learning within a community, for me, it's collaborative learning. You are taking a lot of different points of views, different ways of learning from other folks. You are sharing your success. You are sharing your failures. You are learning from the other people's successes and failures, because everybody is part of the same process, and they go on this learning path on different speeds, and they hit different challenges. And the best way to grow and to share all of these is with other people that it's having similar goals to you. And this is what a community could bring to you. And we had this transition of having like a full in-person communities where everybody got together either on a meetup or a conference in different parts of the world, to this weird period of time where everybody was in their house because of a pandemic was going on, trying to find different ways of congregate online through virtual communities, doing virtual conferences, virtual meetups. And after that happened, one of the things that I think was very good about this horrible thing that happened to all of us is that all of the borders got like pretty much vanished, and we became a global community. So now we started to interact, or I got invited to speak up at Pakistan Dreaming online. Never in my life imagined that I'm going to have like contact with the Pakistani community, for example, or giving talks to community meetups in Norway or in South Africa, in places that I never imagined that I was going to be interacting with these folks. And this was thanks to this opening community outreach, thanks to these virtual technologies. Now, when we started come back into the in-person meetings, coming back to Trailhead DX or Trailblazer DX, coming back to Dreamforce or the Dreaming communities, now putting faces to those people that you met while the world was locked down was impressive. I mean, that experience was great. So that's important of community. First, you are learning with others, you are meeting other people, you are doing networking, and you are most of the times finding your friends, because the people that you see in the conferences, they became your friends. And next time you see them, it is not under the same tech meetup or tech conference. You are like, for some reason now, making those people part of your personal life. So for me, since I started with technology back in 1999, community has been my life. And I could say most of my best friends are part of these communities that I have belonged since then.
Yeah, it completely resonates with me. I've met some of the most fantastic people through doing community work and work out in the community, and I'm proud to call a lot of these people my friends as well. And it is a really special connection. You know, you have this one thing that bonds you, the technology and the platforms that you're working with, and then you're all just people, and it's just this beautiful amalgamation of just goodness. And I think that was my first
as an anecdote
ever.
that I can share. I used to organize as an anecdote that I can share, I used to organize the JSConf in Colombia, the main JavaScript conference. Back in 2017, I went to Colombia. I was living in the US for a while, and I wasn't able to travel back to Colombia until I got my green card and everything. So I got back to Colombia in 2017, organized this conference there, and I met at the conference party, like the happy hour at the end of the conference. I met the person that is today my wife.
Oh wow, amazing!
Yes. So we started a relationship. The pandemic hit. We had like a long distance relationship. After the pandemic, I proposed, and now she's living with me. She's just right next door. So I also found a family in the community.
Yeah, no, it's also an anecdote that resonates with me is my partner is also sitting in the next room and is also a member of the community as well. So
Look at that.
It's great things can happen, and great things can come from this. Before we jump into the Heroku stuff again, what would be so you? We find a lot in, or I've found a lot in organizations when I've been speaking to the developers and the development teams that are working on Salesforce. They have often come from quote unquote traditional software engineering backgrounds, or are more familiar with other technologies, be it something like JavaScript, C#, or whatever it is. What's your advice to anybody that is a developer in their current organization and have their companies recently bought Salesforce, and they've been tasked with go become a Salesforce developer and help us implement it, or a developer that is trying to take that journey and learn Salesforce? What's the best advice you can give to somebody in that position that is taking on Salesforce as a new platform but has that traditional coding background?
My best advice is give it a try. And I say it because I had this predisposition of getting into Salesforce. For me, it was an unknown world. But I thought as Salesforce as this enterprise thing, outdated, proprietary, that is not going to give me any value. So I was very hesitant to get into it, to be 100% honest, until I gave it a try. I built my first project. I started using these tools, even the low code. I have been a pro code enthusiast all my life. I love to get into the lines of code, and the harder the thing, the harder the problem, the better for me. But when I started using Flow, for example, I was mind blown. Like, oh my God, this is possible. This is super powerful. I can build something, I can build logic without a line of code. And this is something that is useful. And for a lot of people that is more visual, or that has like a different way of solving problems, this is a very powerful tool. When I started learning Lightning Web Components, as you know, I come from a very deep JavaScript background. So I was expecting that I was going to encounter something like legacy JavaScript, something that is not going to give me joy. But then I see standard JavaScript using web component, which is a standard, using modern technologies, the ability of create good applications using modern developer tools. So I gave it a try and I got surprised. And I say, wow, this is not what I was expecting. This is way better. And the same thing with Apex. I don't want to touch Apex. This doesn't look good. I used to do Java for a while, and I didn't want to went back to those type of languages. But then I started doing Apex, and this is powerful. I can do a query without using a lot of different libraries. This is just native to the language, and I can connect these to Flow, and I can connect these to the systems. So then I started doing like a more complex projects, connecting APIs, integrating different parts of the platform, using PubSub, and I got surprised. This is not what I was expecting. It's way better, and it became joyful for me learning these new aspects of development applications on Salesforce. So my advice is give it a try. Leave your predispositions, your preconceptions behind, and go ahead. Get into Trailhead and build an app, build a project, and see what you might be missing out.
I guess that's pretty good advice for life as well. Leave your predispositions at the predispositions at the door and see what happens, right? So, Julián, Heroku. So, might be no surprise to the listeners. Certainly no surprise to anybody that knows me. But I know nothing about Heroku and what Heroku is. What is Heroku? There's going to be lots of people listening to this that aren't familiar with the platform as well. So, what is Heroku?
Okay, in simple terms, Heroku is a platform as a service where people can deploy or host applications that are built using open source languages. So if you are building an application with Python, with Java, with Node.js, PHP, Go, Ruby, these languages, the platform where you are going to host these applications is Heroku. Usually, you can host applications like these on, let's say, AWS. If you want to host an application in AWS, you need to make a lot of decisions before getting your app online.
And get your checkbook out.
Yeah. Decisions like, okay, I'm going to be using EC2, like a virtual machine. What operating system I'm going to be using to host my application? Okay, let's say I'm going to be using Linux. What's going to be my memory and CPU configuration for that virtual machine? What's going to be my networking configuration? I'm going to have an API gateway in the front. How I'm going to be putting the code out there. Do I need to write the scripts to upload the code, a cloud formation scripts? So there is a lot of different opinions and decisions that you need to make before getting your app online. And this is where the DevOps role comes in, right? A DevOps engineer usually is the person that makes these decisions and takes care of these implementation details. Heroku is an opinionated platform. We already made all of those decisions for you. We are giving you a tool. Usually it's going to be a CLI tool or as easy as pushing code using Git, because that's our approach to deploying code is through Git. And you are going to push your code to our Git server, and that's it. We take care of building your application into a container, putting the container available online, assigning compute parameters to it like CPU and memory, giving you an URL so you can go ahead and open your live application on a browser, and giving you those developer tools for you to manage your application, scale your application, add other resources to your app like database, cache, messaging queue, object storage, and it's a fully managed platform. That's what Heroku offers you. We manage the application, we take care of the DevOps, we take care of the infrastructure. You focus on building the application. And that's what you can do with Heroku.
Yeah. So what is the interplay between Heroku and Salesforce? Because you say Heroku is platform as a service, and we know Salesforce to be elementally a platform as a service to some extent as well. Mm-hmm. So what's the interplay between Heroku and Salesforce? How do they coexist together?
Okay, so see Heroku for certain specific use cases where maybe Salesforce is not going to be your best platform for doing so. Let's say that your team already has a pre-existing system or application built on these languages I mentioned, but these applications need to use Salesforce data. So now we have one problem to solve. How I'm going to bring Salesforce data into my application, and vice versa. How I'm going to get my data from my application into Salesforce. It's a typical integration that folks do with Heroku applications. So you can integrate Salesforce and Heroku. First, we have one integration point, which is Heroku Connect. Heroku Connect allows you to synchronize your Heroku database, which is a Postgres database, one of the most, I will say, popular and performant open source databases out there. So you can synchronize your Postgres database on Heroku with Salesforce objects automatically. You connect your org, you select the objects you are going to map within your table, and that's it. You can consume Salesforce data as if it were Postgres data. And if you write to that table using regular SQL, that information is going to be wrote back to Salesforce. So it maintains a bidirectional synchronization between those two. That's one way. Recently, we launched an integration with Data Cloud, also with PostgreSQL. So you can connect PostgreSQL as a Data Cloud data stream and get information from your database into Data Cloud and do anything you can do with Data Cloud with your Heroku data. You can do it through the API. Salesforce has a powerful set of APIs that you can use from wherever, and you can do so from Heroku. And we are working on now more native integration between those two to make that API interaction easier. And you can use eventing, connecting to platform events, CDC events, and get data back into Heroku as well. There are like a multiple ways of doing this integration. Another common integration between Salesforce and Heroku is if you have an application in Heroku that has APIs and you need to consume these APIs from Salesforce, let's say as a flow actions or invocable methods on a Lightning Web Component, you can import Heroku APIs as external services into Salesforce. And they are going to be pretty much converted into Apex methods that you can call wherever in Salesforce. So there are like multiple ways you can connect those two worlds. But see Heroku as external pro-code compute environment for applications written in these open source languages I mentioned that runs within the same Salesforce trust boundary, because we are part of Salesforce. So you are keeping the data in the same pretty much trust boundary between those two worlds.
So you have the connection between Heroku and Salesforce, and that bidirectional transfer of data and information is important. What are some of the common use cases for doing that? What's the typical problem that people are trying to solve by creating this connection between Heroku? Like typically, what would the application on the Heroku side be that they're using, and the corresponding Salesforce data that's required for that application to work? Is it more common in specific industries or with specific clouds or anything like that?
There is no specific industry, because we have seen Heroku being implemented across multiple industries like insurance, healthcare, auto industry, the e-commerce. So we have a bunch of different other customers out there. One use case, as I mentioned, is when you need Salesforce data out of Salesforce integrated with an already existing application. And let's say that you need a highly scalable application that it's deployed on Heroku, running on 10 different nodes, getting thousands of requests per second, like something that it's accessed through a lot of folks, but that it needs to have access to this Salesforce data and keep the same information that is in Salesforce within your application. So that's one way you connect those two worlds through this connector, which is Heroku Connect. One example, one recent customer story that we published is with a company called Health Sherpa. They manage the registration and Medicare and healthcare here in the United States. So all of those registrations from other people that is interested in having these healthcare planned for them is managed by this application that they built and is running on Heroku. And then all that data is synchronized back to Salesforce through Heroku Connect. That's one example. Another example of Heroku applications, we recently also published the use case of one very popular Salesforce application that is running on Heroku, which we already mentioned, and is Trailhead.
Oh,
Trailhead.salesforce.com is hosted on Heroku. And
wow,
it
I didn't
uses
know
a
that.
lot of and it uses a lot of the other Heroku tools we have, like the CI/CD integration, like these data stores and these other tools we offer to host and run Trailhead. And not only the public product that you have access to, also the internal content sites that Trailhead has and some other tools that the product has. If you go to heroku.com/customers, you can see the story and see how Trailhead is using Heroku, for example. The developer.salesforce.com website is one that it's also hosted on Heroku. It is a custom build CMS that uses WordPress as an API and has like some other specific architecture. And that custom nature makes Heroku a good place to deploy this type of solutions. With Salesforce, you can use Experience Cloud to build websites, really powerful, really tight and integrated with Salesforce data. But sometimes the website or the platform you are building is way more complex than just what these tools gives you. So you will need to use an external way to build this, and this is where Heroku shines. You can deploy these custom build applications that can grow and scale in our platform.
Yeah. So scalability is the big thing. If you want to build big things, then it's going to require some level of customization, and Heroku is going to keep all the pieces moving and all the data in the right places with that trust layer that you mentioned, and that Salesforce is so big on these days. Speaking of that trust layer, and something that you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Heroku for Data Cloud, and the possibilities of Data Cloud I think is probably one of the most exciting things that we will potentially be able to do in the future, and getting that platform out there. How important is Heroku going to be for successful Data Cloud implementations, and what customers are going to be able to do with Data Cloud?
So we like to see ourselves as the pro code platform for Data Cloud. So if you need to have like custom compute code running on like Salesforce, host it and run it on Heroku, and then integrate it with your Salesforce services. I don't know if you are familiar with this. It was very popular between 2019 and 2022, a technology called Salesforce Functions.
I've heard of them, but never used them.
Okay. So Salesforce Functions was going to be that external compute capabilities tightly integrated with Salesforce. Basically, Salesforce Functions was all the internals of Heroku moved back into Salesforce. What happens is that sadly, Salesforce Functions got deprecated. So the support ends next year, if I'm not wrong. But our recommendation is, if you are a Salesforce Functions customer, keep running your compute, keep running your code on Heroku, because you are still in the same trust boundary, you have all of the compute capabilities, and you can integrate directly to Salesforce. So Heroku is becoming more and more and more that compute solution for Salesforce. When you need to run these workloads that pretty much the Apex allocations or limits cannot let you go over it, get that application and run it on Heroku, for example, and integrate it. So we like to see ourselves as this bring your own compute platform for Salesforce and for Data Cloud. And as I mentioned, we recently launched the PostgreSQL connector, but we are working on more features to integrate directly with Data Cloud, with Zero Copy, integrations with Kafka, and some others that are going to come along the way. So yes, we are constantly working to get more close to Salesforce in integrations. If you see the release notes right now, there is one feature that is in pilot that we are working super hard to get it into GA, is the Heroku into the setup page. If you go to Salesforce setup page and search for Heroku, you are going to see now Heroku information in there. But this pilot version that we have right now allows you to register Heroku services, like APIs you have deployed into Heroku, into external services for Salesforce. Similar as you can connect today MuleSoft APIs to Salesforce, you will be able to do so with Heroku APIs. So we are always working hard to get Heroku and Salesforce close together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and a lot of exciting things, and a lot of things to work on from the product side, which I can see you talking about it, and I can see you're excited about it. Is there anything else about like the future of Heroku that you are particularly excited about? I mean, obviously making the transition back to Heroku and continuing to build that community is a huge thing. What's kind of your prediction for Heroku over the next couple of years?
I'm super happy about a lot of multiple things. One thing that I can talk right now is we are working on a next generation platform. I mean, Heroku has been around for a while. We were acquired back in 2012, so we have been at Salesforce company for a while, and Heroku was synonymous of innovation, of developer experience. We created a bunch of concepts that are like relevant today, like GitOps. Performing DevOps operations through Git was a concept that was initially envisioned by Heroku. The 12-factor application manifesto, which is a way of how to properly build applications that are going to be run on the cloud. We created build packs, which is a way to detect, build, and release code into containers. This is pretty much the secret sauce of Heroku, and this is why we are able to support all of these programming languages. And we have been working close to the cloud native technologies. Recently, we became platinum sponsors of the Cloud Native Foundation, showing our commitment with the cloud native pretty much community and efforts. Build packs became a cloud native project. So we have our open source standard version, which is the cloud native build packs, that we have been working on those with other companies like Pivotal, for example. And we are working on this next generation of Heroku. And basically, we are updating all of our internal runtime, which today we can say it is in-house. We built in-house, and it's kind of proprietary, to work on top of Kubernetes. So we are now moving to more industry standards, and that will allow us to grow faster, innovate faster, and simplify platforms for others. A lot of people and a lot of companies, they are trying to build their own Herokus. And Heroku became this synonym of the platform as a service. So people say, I'm building the Heroku off, or I'm building my own version of Heroku for X or Y company. And you can see even like some open source clones of what can give you an Heroku-like experience, which is deploying using Git. Git push Heroku main became one of those renowned commands to get an application from your computer to the cloud in just one command. So our message to those companies is don't spend all of those resources and time and people building your own platform. We already did for yourself. Use us. We already have a dedicated team that has been solving this problem for more than 12 years. You don't need to build, reinvent the wheel again. Let us do what we do best, which is build platforms to run applications. That's our premise. And I'm super excited about this new a next generation platform. We have a session at Dreamforce that we are going to be talking about this next generation platform. We have other sessions at Dreamforce where we are telling the story how to integrate with Salesforce, how to create great customer experiences. And we even have a very interesting customer session where one of our customers from Italy is telling people how they build a custom experience for their own customers. And the company I'm talking about is Lamborghini. So Lamborghini,
nice.
the Italy company that makes these.
I think that's a familiar name.
These nice cars, they use Heroku for this experience, and they integrate Heroku with Salesforce to build custom experience for their the drivers and their customers. So that's one of our sessions that's going to be a highlight at Dreamforce in one of our breakouts. So if you want to learn how customers like Lamborghini are using Heroku to solve their use cases, come to Dreamforce and visit us in the booth. Take up at one of the workshops we are also presenting at Dreamforce. And this is just one part of what we are doing. We're working on AI solutions. We are working on more things that we might need another half an hour to talk about
that. Yeah, what I'm hearing is I'm gonna come to the Heroku booth and hope that it's a Lamborghini Urus that you're doing all these demos out of. That'd be nice. But the other message, and I think this is really strong, just because of how you have spoken about the product and what the product is in of itself. It's a way, if you are a developer in Salesforce with that kind of background, it's a way that you can stay connected to developer experiences that you're used to while still being connected to Salesforce, and a really nice way to bring those worlds together. I think that's a really unique value proposition for those people. If people want to learn more about Heroku and don't have the chance to go to Dreamforce, what's kind of the best places for people to visit?
Sure. Let's go to blog.heroku.com. There you can see what are we writing about, all of our recent articles. If you want to learn how customers are implementing Heroku, you can go to heroku.com/customers and take a look at our case studies. If you want to build applications and learn how to build on Heroku, you can go to github.com/Heroku-ref-apps, like Heroku reference applications, is where we publish our examples. Those are applications that can be deployed on Heroku, and I have different examples of building AI applications, integrating with MuleSoft, building data cloud applications, etc. So there are like different ways you can interact with us. And of course, go to devcenter.heroku.com, which is our documentation. And there are like a bunch of different getting started guides, depending on the language of your choice. And my recommendation for the two types of developers we tend to talk to, if you are not part of the Salesforce ecosystem, go ahead and take the risk and take the opportunity to learn about Salesforce, build, and see if you can integrate Salesforce and Heroku. That's a very good way to connect the two worlds. And if you're a Salesforce developer that doesn't know anything about building applications with these other languages, I invite you also to spend some time learn Python or extend your learning path on JavaScript and give Heroku a try. That's also going to open the doors for you in the job market, and also giving you more opportunities to build applications on Salesforce. So it's going to be beneficial for the two types of developers out there.
Julián, thank you so much. I'm definitely leaving this conversation more clued up than I went in. So thank you, and listeners, I hope that you've enjoyed the experience too. Julián, is there any other parting bits of wisdom that you'd like to leave us with, apart from leave your predispositions at the door and get involved in community?
Leave that behind, and remember that the best way to learn is by doing. If you don't get your hands dirty, if you don't touch the code, and if you don't write or try to experiment, learning is going to be hard. So sure, go do your trailheads. Sure, go watch videos. Sure, go read books. But practice, 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 and better if you have issues, if you have errors, if you get stuck, that's also part of the learning process and a very good way to grow. And my social networks are open. You can find me by my name on LinkedIn, my name on Twitter. You can follow me, you can send me a message, and if you have any other question, please, I'm more than happy to be connected to you.
Great. Julián, thank you so much, and I will catch you at Dreamforce.
Thank you, Jack, for the invitation.
Great.
Of course.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.